Grow, become a Christian leader in the church. How do you become a Christian leader in the church? Well, be a pig. You have to be a pig. It's a shame George Crumb's not here this morning. That comes naturally for him. Be a pig. What do I mean by that? Pray, invite, and give. That is how you become a person of influence in any congregation. If the leadership knows that you are praying for them, if the leadership know that you are inviting people to church, if the leadership know that you are giving your financial resources and your time, you will have influence in that church. If you don't do those things, you may be another loud voice complaining. And we get a lot of that, but that's the way it is.
I'm a quiet voice complainer.
Yeah, well, you're a quiet voice complainer? Okay. Now, we talked about this before. There is a difference between getting time and attention. You know, the reason why Super Bowl ads cost so much is not just because 100 million people are watching, it's because they're even watching for the commercials. I mean, my wife watches the Super Bowl, but she doesn't care about the game. She doesn't even know what, I have to explain everything when it comes to football. Yeah, and so, but she watches the commercials. Now, that's why they cost so much, because they're not just selling time, they're selling attention. They know people are paying attention. You can get the time of any church leader just by getting in his face. But if you want to get his attention, that's something else. That's something else. And that, you want my attention, you want Dad's attention, you want Rick's attention, you want any church leader's attention. They need to know that you're a person who is praying for them. They need to know that you're somebody who's inviting the unchurched to church, and that you're giving. And look, we don't even care. I have said this again and again. You know, the whole idea of tithing, which we'll talk about in a minute, in the Old Testament, the baseline tithe was 10%. Actually, when you counted it all up, it was really close to between 30 and 40% that the Israelites gave. But in the New Testament, Paul says, you give what you're able joyfully. So if that's $5, fine. Because I meet young couples all the time say, you know, I'd like to tithe, but we're in debt. I said, okay, well, one, get out of debt. You know, it's that 80, 10, 10. You give 10%, you save 10%, you live on the other 80%. That's how you fix that nonsense. That 80% is all you spend. But I say, okay, fine. You got $5? Put $5 in a tithe envelope, put your name on it, put it in there. If I see that, because I just tell you, the leadership looks at the financial sheets. We have to, because we have to do this thing called budget. And we take our budget very seriously here at Christ Community Church. Now, a lot of churches don't. They give that, oh, we'll just trust the Lord. And that's why a lot of churches have bad credit. When we go to different places, like we have an account with different Christian stores, and they will tell us that most churches don't pay their bills. And they're so impressed with us just because we pay the bill. We always pay the bill. And they talk about that. I mean, there's like, oh, we appreciate you guys so much. You actually pay your account. It's like, what do you mean we actually pay? Who? But they don't. We have to budget. And so we look every week. We go over and look how much money came in. What is our, you know, we have to do that. That's just what you have to do as leadership. This, you know, we have bills. We have costs. The electric company doesn't give us this for free. The water company doesn't give us our water for free. You know, we have to pay for this stuff. We have to pay for this stuff. Also remember this. If you want to have a say in what happens in the church, you can't be a person who badmouths the church in public. And this happens more often than you know. And what's strange is, the more a church helps a person, for some reason, the more they badmouth the church. I don't know why that is, but Dad told me when I got into ministry 17 years ago, he said, son, understand this. The people you help the most, for whatever reason, are the ones who will stab you in the back the quickest.
That's a human trait overall.
It is a human trait, unfortunately. I don't know why that is, but it's there. I mean, we have, for example, this just happened recently. When we ask for you to be generous with the less fortunate, you put $1 and that kind of stuff, that goes towards helping our folks in our church. And we help folks in our church first. So we help them if they're coming up short on rent or, their electric bill, they need groceries, whatever, we help them do that. And we always help the people in our congregation first. Now, we've had people, we had a couple where we paid their rent for a couple months, and then we hear that the guy's out talking about what a bunch of jerks we are. And we're like, are you serious? But this happens all the time. Now, if that person comes to me after he's been badmouthed church, says, hey man, I think you ought to do this. You know what I'm thinking? No. Just hurry up and finish and go away. Being a raving fan in public often earns you the right to be a critic in private. In any institution, anywhere, at your work, anywhere, at home. Husbands, if you're bad-mouthing your wife, she's going to hear about it, and it's going to make a difference. If you defend her even when she's wrong, and then you take her behind closed doors and say, you probably shouldn't have done that. If you badmouth her in public and then tell her you shouldn't have done it, she's going to say, well, you shouldn't have said that in public. Yeah, exactly. Right? That's how it works. That's how that works. And one of the ways to show your support nowadays in any institution is this. Use social media to brag on your church, brag on your organization, brag on it. This is a great way. Celebrate victories. It's been fantastic. We baptized 37 people. We may end up baptizing 2 more after service today, and we've got about 7 more lined up over the next 2 weeks. So we're going to hit that 50 mark pretty soon, halfway there. And you should celebrate that. That's a great thing, right? Yes. 50 people coming to Christ in our little town. That's wonderful. Celebrate that. Put that on Facebook. Put that on Twitter. Put that on Instagram. Brag on your organization's victories. Not enough organizations celebrate victories. Always celebrate your victories. Andy Stanley starts off his staff meetings in the first of the week always with his staff leaders going, what kind of victory did you have this weekend? They celebrate together. We should all celebrate together. Praying for the church. How often do you pray for Christ Community Church? You should pray for your church every single day. And pray for the leadership. Be praying for the leadership by name. If you don't know, essentially, we don't have elections for elders here because, first of all, that's not anywhere in the Bible. You won't find that anywhere in the Bible. Paul had Timothy appoint elders. And so the elders here are those who teach. It's Dad, Rick, and me. We're the elders / trustees of the church. And we covet your prayers. Now, quite frankly, so is Ralph. Ralph doesn't do any teaching, but let's face it, Ralph's got a lot of influence in this place because he's Ralph, and that's just Ralph. Ralph is the only person who can screw up on stage, and Dad will not say anything to him. And it's just because he's Ralph, and it's just the way it is. And so Dad used to say, I always thought if anybody got more popular than me here, I'd fire him. But then Ralph got too popular too quick, and I couldn't do anything about it. So now it's just pray for the leadership. You need to understand something. I don't think most people understand this. The life of a pastor is busy, it's stressful, and it's lonely. I'm not looking for sympathy here because, I got a great wife who's my best friend. But quite frankly, most pastors don't have friends. And the reason why is that anybody around them look at them first as their pastor. And so they don't have friends. And so it's busy. I know most people think the life, because seminary draws a lot of lazy people because they tend to think the pastor's life is pretty easy. It's not. First of all, you're on call 24/7. I mean, you're like an ER doctor. You are on call 24/7. And so I don't know how many times I've been at an ER with a family at 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. I mean, sitting there praying with them. You know, this stuff is stressful. There is no way to go into a hospice room with a family and not be stressed out. And we do that all the time. Ralph does that all the time. It is a stressful life. Most pastors burn out within 2 years. Most pastors, people who go to seminary, leave the ministry after 2 years because they burn out. They just burn out. I mean, we put in, I tell you right now, mom and dad at 79 and 76 put in about 60, 70 hours a week minimum in this place. And pastors often have a series of broken hearts. We are constantly criticized, and when anybody leaves the church, it hurts. Maybe it shouldn't, but it does. It hurts. We hear more criticism than praise. And this is just the way it is. People complain more than compliment. That's natural. That's our tendency. For example, somebody's in a room, if it's too cold, they say it's cold in here. It's too hot, they say it's too hot in here. Nobody ever sits in the room and goes, it's the perfect temperature in here. Isn't this wonderful? Just sitting here on the couch in the perfect temperature. Nobody ever does that. They just complain. It's our natural default. So we understand that we typically only bring something up when we're mad about something or something bugs us. But you got to understand, there are 1,200 people in this church. So we hear it a lot. Music's too loud. I don't like this song. Why don't we do this? Why, on and on. And again, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I often get criticism from people who haven't given us a dime and show up once a month. And I'm sitting there going, okay, when are you going to finish so I can forget this 5 seconds from now? Because that's what I'm going to do. So pray, pray, pray. Pray for mom and dad. And mom and dad, quite frankly, I'll brag on them. My parents are my heroes. I mean, I've told you before, they work their tails off. And they've never complained about it. I've told you before, if you don't know, Dad, for 20 years, had the most insane schedule I've ever seen a human being have. And he wasn't in good health then. He had high blood pressure back then. Once I remember seeing him at the pulpit, ashen gray, and worrying that he was going to have a heart attack. Dad would preach Sunday morning. Then he used to teach a Bible study in here on Sunday night that was packed. Then he would get in his car, drive to Columbus, get a hotel room, get on a plane at 5 o'clock in the morning, fly to South Korea, Mexico, Turkey, India, Germany as a steel consultant, work there all week, fly back Friday night, get home from Columbus like 9, 10, 11 o'clock Friday night, get up Saturday morning, come to the church office, study all day to preach and teach the next day, and then do it all over again. And he did that for 20 years. Mom worked as a corporate executive in Columbus. She drove back and forth to Columbus every day for 20 years. She'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, get ready, fix us breakfast, then jump in her car at 7 o'clock, drive 2 hours, be at her office at 9 o'clock, work till 5, turn around, drive home 7 o'clock, fix us dinner. And she did that for 20 years. And then what's funny is people in this town will be like, oh, that church, Scott and Alice Kay must be, they look at them living in that loft, driving that car, they must make a fortune off the church. No, they made a fortune off working their butts off in the corporate world and saving their money, living on that 80-10-10 principle and investing wisely and so forth. And, okay, Dad loves to talk about the stock market. My mom actually is the one who's really good at investing in the stock market. If you want good stock tips, ask my mom. She bought Facebook low. Okay? That paid off. But, with them, it's the same way. Mom and dad always are going over their own budget, the church's budget, and so they will take advice and criticism from people they know are praying for them, are inviting people to church, and are giving. Invite non-church people to church. I do not understand why Christians do not invite people to church. But the majority, overwhelming majority of Christians do not ever invite anyone to church. And that's a serious, serious issue. This is not a suggestion. This is not something that's nice to do. Jesus, that guy who died for you, to save you, commanded us to go and disciple people of all nations. You can't start discipling people before they're converted. They got to be converted. And they're not going to be converted without hearing the gospel. They need to come to church, and you need to be the ones to invite them. Yes, the staff is inviting people, but you do not pay us to evangelize. Jesus commanded all of us to evangelize. And this is one of the reasons why the church is always on the defensive, is we're not being proactive as Christians. Matthew records Jesus saying, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not overcome it." Gates are defensive structures, which means Jesus expected us to be storming the gates of hell with squirt guns. He expected us to go, move. We start a sermon series next week for the month of October. It's Halloween, so we're going to do something a little weird. We're going to talk about Satan and demons and hell and all that kind of stuff over the next 3 weeks. I'm talking about Satan next week. Dad and I are talking about Satan next week. But here's the end all be all. Satan loses.
Yes. Woo, that's right.
All right? If you've read the back of the book, spoiler alert, we win. And we're supposed to be fighting that battle now. How hard is it to fight a battle you know you're going to win? Come on, folks, right? I like what Mark Batterson said. Mark Batterson wrote a wonderful book called In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day. And that's from the Bible. If you look up David's mighty men, he had a warrior named Benaniah who hunted a lion into a pit, jumped into the pit with a lion on a snowy day. That's a dude right there. That's one guy you don't want to mess with. But he writes in that book, he said he taught for years, he taught little kids basketball, and that wee little kids, like, you know, Joey's kids' age, and so they're little kids, and they didn't know what they were doing. They were often start playing defense under their own basket when they had the ball. And he'd shout at them, "You're supposed to be playing offense," because they'd forget. Sometimes, sometimes I think people in heaven are looking down at the church today in North America and go, "Hey, you're supposed to be playing offense." Come on, guys. I mean, we have the Lord of the entire universe behind our back. What are we scared of? Are we so arrogant that we're so afraid we don't invite people to church because they may get offended, they may think we're weird? Whoopee. Who cares? Invite them anyway. Hey, I'd like you to come to church. I'm not into all that. That's the worst it's going to get, guys. Nobody's going to turn around and like pull a 357 on you for inviting them to Christ Community Church. Inviting others is one of the ways we play offense, just to get them to church. Important. And you need to write out a list of people to invite to church. And then you need to keep that list with you and pray over it. This is just a simple thing that the people who most accomplish their goals, those people who are most successful, write down their goals and they look at them all the time. Well, it's the same principle. People who invite people to church, write that out, pray over it, and they keep it in mind. Because here's, a little insight. All of us are selfish. And it's hard not to be when you're with yourself 24/7. You're thinking about yourself 24/7 because you're with yourself 24/7. And so we tend to be selfish. And so we tend not to think of other people. One of the ways you keep that, the way you cut through that, is to write that down and keep it with you. Guys, put it in your wallet. And every time you reach for your cash, or every time your wife tells you to reach for your cash, there's that list. There's that list. If your wife's anything like mine, you're going to be reaching for that thing every day. Any questions so far? Pretty simple, right? Give. We are expected to give what we are able to give. We are expected to tithe. Now, there's not a number there. There is not a number there. The way I do it is every month, end of the month, I look at my bills. Here's what my bills, here's what I have. Here's what needs to go into savings, so what's left over. Half that's going to savings, half is going to church. That's just the way I do it. And so it fluctuates. Sometimes it's up here, sometimes it's down here, but it has to happen. And I give online. You can give online at Christ Community Church. You can actually go online. If you forget about it, you can go online and you can sign up to, like anything else, have it automatically withdrawn from your bank account every month. You can just set an amount and it'll just, or you can just give the leadership your credit card. We'll pray over it and we'll let you know. I prefer that one, but only 5% of the American population gives. And only 10, the rough estimates, we're not really sure, but most estimates are only 10 to 25% of Christians in a church give anything at all. Give anything. Now, if adult Christians, let's say every adult Christian gave 10%, that would be an additional $165 billion to churches. What could be done with that? 15 billion would solve the entire world's water and sanitation problems. If every Christian gave 10%, the churches like ours who work with World Help would solve the world's water and sanitation problem in a year, 1 year. Every person in the world would have clean water and sanitation in 1 year if they gave 10%. But they don't. 1 billion extra, just 1 billion. Remember, it'd be 165 billion if everybody gave. 1 billion would fully fund all current missionary activities overseas. Every missionary would be fully funded to spread the gospel. I mean, here at Christ Community Church, money is tight. The money is really tight. I mean, we're under budget right now. We're trying to cut back as best we can, all that kind of stuff. But we made a commitment to assist World Help in Uganda. Uganda is where we've kind of parked. So, okay, we're going to adopt that part of the world. We are currently raising money. And the golf scramble last week, the reason we had the golf scramble was to raise money for Uganda. It wasn't just to play golf. We raised about $8,400 last Sunday. And we're going to build what Dad calls, so as in his Kentucky elegant way, a pooperia. The pooperia. Here's what the pooperia is. In Destiny Village, what we're going to build, because right now, the way they cook is they have to chop down trees. They have latrines. They don't have toilets. They just have latrines. So what we're going to build is a building where we have modern toilets, and the waste from that will be converted into methane gas that they can cook with. So it is kind of in one end, out the other, and it serves back and forth again. But it works. It costs about $15,000 to build one at Destiny Village, and we're going to build one. We have the money. We're going to do it. So that will be built in the next year. I don't know about you, but I happen to think that's really cool. It gives them clean sanitation. It makes the way, and it also helps for you greenies out there. It helps the environment because they can quit cutting down trees everywhere. Because deforestation is a problem in Uganda because they're cutting down trees left and right because they haven't got a really good energy source. Well, this will fix that problem, at least at Destiny Village, so you know where your money's going. But we have to pay. We have fixed cost. Every church has fixed cost. We have to pay certain things. And increasingly, even though we are technically tax exempt, there are certain things we're not tax exempt from. And more what governments are pushing back on is saying, well, okay, where you do ministry is tax exempt, but your parking lot or your driveway into your parking lot, we're going to tax that. Increasingly, that's becoming, the way it goes. And so costs for churches are going up. And we don't provide health care here for our staff. They have to find that on their own. And so it's just, It's expensive. And we have a lot of people in need. Give your time as well. Volunteer. You need to give money. I don't care if it's $5 or whatever, but you also need to give your time. All of you should be volunteering in some way, shape, or form. Don't care what it is. Whether it's the nursery, kids area, security staff. We're going to end up putting together a parking team at some point. We've had 2 incidents in the last week where people have dinged other cars coming in. So we're going to put together a parking team to show people. Apparently, we have to show people how to park. These are the yellow lines. You stay in the side of those. Okay, come on, you know. It just happens. Like I said last week, it's a good thing to volunteer. Let me tell you something. This has been proven. Those who volunteer live twice as long as those who don't. Want to live longer? Do something. If you're sitting around on your butt watching Fox News or MSNBC all day, of course your blood pressure is going to be high and you're going to be miserable. You're going to sit around and just get hot all the time, right? Get up off your butt and do something, you'll live longer. The news never changes. It's always bad. Until Jesus returns, it's always going to be bad. And you need to know how things work at a church. You need to know. All of you need to know. How do you check in a kid at the kid station? So if you see some parent over there coming in late, you can go help them out. You need to know how things work. Even if it's not your job, which I hate that. I hate that. Dad had it long before Jeff Bezos did it at Amazon. At Amazon, they say the quickest way to get fired is to say, that's not my job. Dad has the same thing. People will show up. I'm here to help. I want to teach. Dad says, go clean the toilet. He said, no, you don't understand. I came here to teach. He said, yeah, but the toilet needs clean. His point is, if you're not humble enough to clean the toilet, you don't have any business getting up there teaching anybody. And we've all done it. And if that's what Amazon demands, why should the kingdom of God demand any less? And here's another thing. I'm about to upset about 60% of the church, but so be it. I have the spiritual gift of annoying people. We especially need men to volunteer everywhere, and that includes the kids ministry. The kids ministry long ago got kicked off to women for some reason because that's women's work to raise the kids. Especially in our time where so many kids do not have a father in the household, we need men in the children's ministry to teach, to lead. We need men to do that. The children's ministry is not women's work. And some of you here are already doing that. I know Joey helps lead back in the cave, and Joe, you found, they're engaged, right? Yeah. And so it's prepare, get in there, do that. What level is that? The North American church is 60% female. The North American church is 60% female, only 40% male. Most men are not interested in going to church, and that's a problem that we have created because we need to raise the testosterone level of the church. We have effeminized Jesus. We have effeminized the message of Christianity, and that crap needs to stop because that is not biblical Christianity. If the king of the universe calls you to die, that's not effeminate. And Christianity is not equal being nice. I hear this all the time. If I criticize somebody, you shouldn't do that. That's not Christian. Oh, really? Yes, you shouldn't say bad things. You shouldn't upset people. Oh, yeah, of course. Jesus never upset people. If he had, they'd crucified him. Jesus upset people all the time. Called people out all the time. Paul called people out all the time. For goodness sakes, read the book of Acts. Peter actually tells the Holy Spirit to kill a couple. And he does. There's this couple named Ananias and Sapphira who sell some land and promise to give all the money to the church, but then they hold some back. And Peter says, you have lied to the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit strikes them dead in front of the church. And they get mad at me for calling Joel Osteen a jerk. Give me a break. I haven't called for his death, just for him to shut up. It happens all the time. I remember when I was in seminary, I was helping tutor freshman Bible students. I will go to heaven for that, if nothing else. And this one guy says, I like the God of the New Testament more than the Old Testament. I said, what? He said, well, the God of the Old Testament is mean and violent, and the God of the New Testament is nice. I said, I think Ananias and Sapphira would disagree with you. He said, who? I said, oh, I see the problem. We're arguing over a book that only one of us have read. That's the problem. We need men to volunteer. Step up, men. You need to lead. Men are called to be leaders. Lead in the congregation as well. Get in there. Not going to hurt you to change a baby's diaper or to deal with a 2-year-old. I mean, you can do it. The way we have to change so many things in the church for this to change. And I'm preaching here more to Facebook than anything else because we've already signed off on this here. We need to change the way we preach. We need to stop with the dead puppy stories, always trying to get people to cry. Dudes don't like to cry. Right? I mean, we do it. I mean, don't tell me you can watch Old Yeller and not cry. I mean, we'll cry if a good dog dies. I mean, that's what dudes will do. But men don't like that. And so we need to attract men. And here's the thing. We're not saying women don't matter. It's just a fact that women are comfortable doing manly things. They are. I can hand my wife a hammer. She's fine. She tries to hand me her purse. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Men are not comfortable doing effeminate things. Women are comfortable doing manly things, correct? Most of them, right? It's just the way it is. But we have designed church in North America just to attract women. Do you know K-Love markets to women exclusively? In their board meetings, K-Love talks about, they have a name, I forget the name for the woman, it's like Alice or so whatever, and they say, well, what are we going to do for Alice this week? Like I said, and they only talk about how to get that 40-year-old woman. And then we wonder why Christian music's so effeminate, because it's being marketed to women. So the way we need to preach, one of the reasons why I use so many props and videos and all that kind of stuff is because the studies show that's what attracts men. Why do I use humor? Because that tends to attract men. Now, this is going to make some people mad, but this is the way it is. Here at Christ Community Church, we do not have a men's ministry. Christ Community Church is a men's ministry. You get the men, the women will come. You just have the women, the men may or may not come. And they may be coming for the wrong reason. The music needs to change. I am so tired of love songs to Jesus. Jesus is king. You're not dating him. You're worshiping him. You should be praising him as king. If you can take the word Jesus out of a song and put a girl's name in it and it still works, there's a problem. Those songs need to go. We need to watch our language. Never, ever, ever, when you're talking to a non-church person, use the terms like intimate relationship with Jesus. That's creepy. He is the king we serve, not the person we're trying to date. Would you ever use the term intimate relationship with another man? Dudes, would you call up somebody, hey man, what's going on? You want to go down to B-Dubs, watch the game? Yeah, that's great. I've really wanted to have an intimate relationship with you. Yeah, you'd be like, actually I forgot I need to clean the bathtub. It's like, you don't use those terms. Don't do that. We serve a king. Jesus is king. And we need to view him that way. So you need to watch your language. We need to change the music. We need to change the way we preach. We're committed to that. I hope others will do the same. Now, when I tell you to give and volunteer, Now, like I said, you may have a great idea. You may be like, okay, the church isn't doing this, but we need, how about we do this? I'll tell you right now what Dad's going to say. Nope. Because we are focused on one thing and one thing only. There's a reason why we're not doing trick or trunk, all that kind of stuff. It's a great thing to do, but we have decided to become laser focused on one thing: reaching the unchurched, getting them baptized, and discipling them. We are making the main thing the only thing. We're going to be absolutely focused. Trick or Trunk was great. Single Parents Fair was great. But not a single person, unchurched person, came to Christ because of it. And that's why we scrapped it. Because we're only doing those things that fulfill the Great Commission for Jesus Christ. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. We have said, when people come and said, why aren't we doing Single Parents Fair? We said, you go do Single Parents Fair. You go change somebody's will. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. Go. You go right ahead. It's a good thing. It's just not the church's focus. So you may see something and go, hey, this needs to be done. So let's get the church to do it. No, you go get people to do it. You can do it. Because most of the time when people come to me with this idea, they're like, we need to be doing this. This means, I think it's a great idea and I think the church should be doing it, but I don't want to do it. You go do it. That's what they mean. And if it's such a great idea, you're so passionate about it, you go do it. If not, forget it. You may just need to go do it on your own. And you need to step up. When I say about give, look, you can do a lot of the stuff the church does. It is unbiblical for the church staff to be doing all the work of ministry. We're called to be a priesthood of all believers. All of us need to be visiting people. All of us need to be evangelizing. All of us need to be discipling. All of us, look, most of the counseling work, I tell people, and because I'm a pastor, I have to make this clear. When people come in for me counseling, I say, I am not a licensed professional counselor. It's the first thing I tell them. Because I don't want them to turn around and go do something and then turn around and sue the church because, well, he did that. I let it very clear. I'm giving you advice just like a buddy. I'm not giving you advice as a counselor. I'm not a professional counselor. If you need some spiritual advice, I'll do the best I can. And you can all do that. And most of the time, a little insight, most counseling is listening. It's just listening. Sometimes all people need to be is just have someone to listen to them. Listen. I like to read every once in a while some weird books. I kind of scan around for odd books to read just to break things up. And there's a book I read many years ago called Tepper Isn't Going Out. And it's a novel about a guy who lives in New York City. And his hobby is to find a good parking place. If you've been to New York City, you can appreciate how difficult this is. You can spend hours in downtown Manhattan trying to find a good parking place. And so he tries to find a good parking place, and when he finds it, he parks there, feeds the meter, and sits there and reads a newspaper. That's all he does. That's his hobby. And so somebody writes this up in the newspaper about this guy who just drives around Manhattan looking for the best parking places, just sits there and reads. And because it's New York, and they're almost as weird as the people in LA, they are just as weird, they're just ruder, but they think that maybe he's on to something. And so a lot of people in Manhattan start to look for him. When they find him, they knock on his door, and they ask if they can sit with him. So they go and they sit with him while the meter is, and eventually, of course, they just start pouring out all their problems to him. And he never says anything more, significant than, well, it's always something. And they walk away feeling really relieved. Because all they needed was somebody to listen, and you can do that. This goes back to our first week, if you're willing to listen. Because most people in our culture today are not listening, they're waiting to speak. You need to be people, look them in the eye, focus, and listen. And just listen. And don't interrupt, just listen. This goes back to how to be men. We're worst at this. I know you think women are, but nope, we are worst at this. Because as soon as somebody tells us a problem, immediately we're going to go, okay, I know how to fix it. We'll do this. And we jump right in and say, we need to do this. Nope. Shut up. Let them finish. This is one of the most difficult things men and women have is because we think so differently. Men want to fix things. Women just want to be understood. Women can't be understood until they finish talking. You got to let them talk, express empathy. And then women When the men go, okay, we need to do this, he's being a man, that's how God designed him, let him fix it. Don't go, oh, well, see, there you go. No, he's being a dude. And God designed him to be a dude, not a woman, so let him be a dude. So men, listen, wait till they're finished, express empathy, and then women, they're going to say, we need to do this. Women, let them do it. Otherwise, just take your problems to your girlfriend, because that's what you want. You want a girlfriend, not a dude. And you can visit newcomers and you can visit the sick. If somebody's in the hospital, look, nobody's better at visiting people in the hospital than Ralph Clay, but he's busy. He really is. Ralph sometimes puts in 12-hour days at this joint. And so he's in the hospital, he's in hospice, he's here for staff meetings, he's putting together growth group lessons, he's doing worship, he's doing a lot. But you can help him out with that. Go visit the sick. And it doesn't even matter, it's not so much what you say or any of that kind of stuff, it's just that you did it, that you showed up. And let me give you a few pointers. Here's what they don't teach in seminary, and I learned the hard way. This is what you do when you go into a hospital room to visit somebody who is sick. One, you never ask them how they're doing. At funerals and hospitals, never ask how they're doing. Because you know the answer if you think about it, which is bad. So you don't ask them that. You just walk in, here's another thing. Don't be like, oh, bless your heart. Oh, bless your... They're already depressed. Don't worsen the situation. Be upbeat. Have a smile. Do appropriate touching for people that are ill is very good. Appropriate touching usually means nothing beyond like the forearm, right? But just take their hand or their forearm, a little touch, smile, look them in the eye, pray with them. If you're not comfortable doing that, let them know you're praying for them. That's all there is to visiting the sick. Trust me, they won't remember a thing you said, but they will remember that you were there. They will remember that you were there. You can visit newcomers. If somebody comes to church, you don't recognize them, come up, introduce yourself, invite them out to coffee. And when you go on vacation or whatever and you visit other churches, which you should, I don't care if you're at Myrtle Beach, the redneck Riviera, but I don't care if you're down there. Go to a church. And if you go to a church and you see something that you like, take notes and share it with us. You know, good poets borrow, great poets steal. Finally, watch your attitude. All the time, watch your attitude. David Dummett said at a conference that we were at, you know, when he was talking, and he was talking to church leaders, but this goes for lay leaders as well, people like yourselves. People don't always need the right answer. We're always afraid to talk to people about Christianity because we think they need the right answer. They don't always need the right answer, but they do always need the right attitude. They do always need the right attitude. And here's the thing. I actually had people at this church tell me this. Well, I invite people to church, but I don't know any unchurched people. And so they're thinking, one, do you have a life? Or two, is it just because no unchurched person wants to be around you? And maybe that's the problem. And we need to fix that. If unchurched people don't want to be around you, you're not being Christ-like. You think about it. In fact, you look at the New Testament. Who are the people most attracted to Jesus? Sinners. Sinners wanted to be around Jesus. Why don't they want to be around us? Because we're not being Christ-like. In fact, the only people Jesus ever really got after were the religious folk. And yet in the modern church today, we show respect to the religious folk and disrespect to the sinners, which is the exact opposite of what Christ did. How do we get that screwed up? And that needs to change. With your attitude, ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Are you a person who's always depressed? Are you a person that's always angst out? Or are you a person that is positive and looking forward to tomorrow? Don Wilson, head pastor of CCV, church of about 30,000 in Phoenix, said this. He said, sorrow looks back, worry looks around, but faith looks forward. Sorrow looks back, Worry looks around, but faith looks forward. We will be positive people if we remember what we've been promised and what is coming. We are the only people on the face of the earth who, if we die, things get better. If we die, we have paradise. And the great thing about getting older, when stuff starts to hurt, is it reminds you how good that's going to be. Right? The older we get, the better that looks. That's the blessing of getting older, is that, when you're young, you think heaven looks like a bummer. When you pass 40, you're like, yeah, okay. When you pass 50, it's like, yeah, good deal. When you pass 60, it's like, let's get this moving. So this hurts and I didn't even use it.
Christ Community meets on Saturday at 5 p.m. and Sunday at 10:30 a.m. For more information, visit www.christcommunity.net or check out our Facebook page.